Hello, hello. So today we are going to be completing the finance chapter, and we're going to talk a little more on credit cards. So throughout each section, we have touched upon credit cards, but now today we're going to go a little bit more in depth with the credit card information. And the first thing I want to show you is the formula to figure out what your payment would be each month when you are making the payments. This is the same formula that we have used in the previous two videos when we were looking at mortgages, student loans, auto loans, and so forth. So if you remember or recall, in a previous video, I talked about how with credit cards, they give you a minimum payment that you have to make each month. However, the majority of that minimum payment is going to be going to interest and very little to the principal. So if you want to pay off your credit card quicker and you have a time frame as to when you want to have it paid off, then this is when you would be using that installment loan formula that we have been discussing. All right, so let's go. Let me just show you. And again, that formula we're also using from the calculators.net website. Let's go to example 1 here so I can kind of show you how we would use that to figure out how we can pay off a credit card sooner by making set payments that would work with our goal rather than just making the minimum payment that we're given. All right, so here's our example. Suppose that on January 1st, you have a balance of $4,400 on a credit card whose APR interest rate is 22%, which you want to pay off in 1 year. Assume that you make no additional charges to the credit card after January 1st. Meaning you've got this balance of $4,400. You want to pay it off. So you're not going to spend any more money on the credit card. You're not going to use it. But you want to figure out what would my payments have to be in order for me to have this paid off in the year time. All right. So let's go over here. We have a few things. We have the balance, right? So that's our principal. That's where we're starting. We have the interest rate is 22%. And we have the time. You want to pay this off in 1 year. Okay, so now let's go back to the calculator.net website. And we're going to go to the loan calculator, which is the one we've been using every time. Now, what is the amount? We owe $4,400 on the credit card. Our time is 1 year because we want to pay this off in just 1 year. The interest rate is 22%, and our plan is to make monthly payments. So now let's go ahead and click calculate. All right, so up here you can see right there, our monthly payment would need to be $411.82. Okay, so let's write that down. $411.82. Now it says when the card is paid off, how much will you have paid since January 1st? So when the card is paid off, so that's part B. I'm going to jump it down here so I have more room to make some calculations. Well, think about what your total payments are. You are making payments of $411.82, but you're doing that for every month for a year. So that's 12 payments. Let's multiply those together, and it tells us how much you paid altogether to pay off the credit card. We get $4,941.84. All right, so that's how much we spent on the total payments. Now, C says, what percentage of your total payments was in interest? Percent. First thing I have to do is figure out how much was in interest. Remember, interest is the total amount you paid minus what was originally owed, which was the $4,400. That's going to tell us how much was paid in interest. And this gives us $542. Now, it wants it as a percent. What percent of your total payments was interest? That's going to be interest divided by total payments, because notice it's asking what percent of the total payments. That's how I know the denominator is going to be the total payments, not the principal. Now you're going to take $542 divided by $4,941.84. Now with this one, let's round 4 places just so we can make sure we're going to get the percentage rounded to 2 places. So we're going to round the decimal to 4 places. So what I see on my calculator, if I round 4 places, is 0.1097. And so now let's pick that to a percent, which means, remember, you're multiplying that by 100. So that would be 10.97%, which would approximately, I mean, it's very close to 11%. So roughly 11% of your payments went to the interest. And that's if you wanted to pay it off in 1 year. If you wanted to lengthen that time into 2 years, you're going to pay more back in interest. The longer you take to pay off a loan, the more interest you pay. Now, let's jump down into a table we're going to work with, but let me kind of go over the problem real quick. Assume you have a balance of $1,700 on a credit card with an APR of 27% or 2.25% per month. You start making monthly payments of $200, but at the same time, you charge an additional $20 per month to the credit card. Assume that interest for a given month is based on the balance for the previous month. The following table shows you how you can calculate your monthly balance. Complete and extend the table to show the balance at the end of each month until the debt is paid off. How long will it take to pay off the credit card debt? All right, so let me kind of reiterate what we just read, but summarize it. You have a balance of $1,700 on the credit card. Your interest rate is 27%, but per month, that would be 2.25%. So when we look at our monthly payments, our interest rate then, we're going to use this because we're looking at our monthly payments. All right, now you're going to make monthly payments right here of $200, but at the same time, every month you're charging in a $20 to your credit card. Maybe it's your gym membership or something you have, but you're continuing that $20 charge per month. So we're going to take all of this information and start working with a table to reduce down to see what we get each month when we reduce down the debt. All right, so I'm going to scroll to the table so we can begin working with this. Month 0, so you just started. That means you haven't made a payment, you don't have your $20 expense, your balance is just the $1,700. Now we're going to start working on this table, and I'll show you how we can calculate how much we're paying in interest each month, because that's the first thing we have to do. Then we'll figure out what our new balance is, because your new balance is always going to be your balance minus the interest that you just paid. So we'll start here. Interest. Just so I'm going to put it right here. For all of this, your interest is going to be 0.0225, because remember, your interest for each month is 2.25%. So we're going to be using the 0.0225 for each month. All right, so I'm going to take 0.0225 times the balance, which right now is $1,700. Calculate that. And again, this is all about dollars, so we're always going to round to the nearest penny. So we should get about $38.25. That is the interest. So that is how much we just paid out of the $200 payment we just made. $38.25 of that $200 went to interest. Now, how do we figure out the new balance? Well, we're starting off with the old balance, which is the previous one. So that's $1,700. And just for room, I'm not going to put the dollar signs in. Minus the $200 payment you just made, plus that $20 charge you're doing every month. So we subtract the payment, but we add that charge. But then we also need to add the interest. Okay, so we had the balance minus the payment, but you have to add the $20, whatever that charge is for, and your interest. This is going to tell you what is now owed on the credit card after that $200 payment. And we get $1,558.25. That is the new balance. So remember, it's not the $1,700 minus your $200 payment. Every payment has part of it go to interest and part of it go to principal. Now let's do this again. This is what every time for the interest, it's the same. You're going to take the 0.0025, but this time it's times the new balance that you just found. So I'm going to put that in our problem here. There's the new balance. Multiply that out, and we get the next month's interest. We should see $35.06 when we round to the nearest penny. Then we do the same thing we did before, except don't forget to use the previous balance because that is your new balance now. But we're going to do the same thing every time. Minus 200, then plus 20. Now, technically, you could say, well, isn't that the same thing as subtracting 180? Sure, and you can do that. There are always other ways to do problems, and whatever way fits best for you, you can do that. I'm just going to be consistent and do it the same way I've been doing it. I love consistency for me. All right, so we do the math here, right? Do some algebra in your calculator. And what we should get for the new balance is $1,413.31. And you would keep doing this. We'll do this one more time, but so again, you keep doing this. So for the next one, again, I'm going to take the same interest, but times the new balance. And we get that interest rate, or not interest rate, the interest amount. This time it's $31.80. So to find the new balance, take the previous balance minus the payment plus the charge and plus the interest from the row we just found. Put these numbers into your calculator. And now what we should see is $1,265.11. All right, I'm going to stop here for a minute. Notice, and this is what you should see. What you should see is that every time I do a new calculation, my interest should be decreasing. So when you start off, it's always going to be a higher amount going to interest, but then that should lessen each time you are making this payment, provided you're not making more charges, right? We're just doing this simple $20 charge. So our balance isn't going to be affected too bad, but you should see that. And then same with the new balance. You should see the principal here going down after each month's payment. You will do this, and I'm not going to do every row because it's just going to be, we're just going to be doing the same thing every time, but I am going to jump down to the last row. So you would keep doing this until, you know what I'll do here though, is I'm going to put in what you should see, just in case you want to do this for practice, what you should see. So I'm going to put down the interest for each of these so that just in case you want to keep going and make sure you understand the process. That's just $18. That was even. Doesn't always happen that way. And then here I got $10.63. And then I'm not done. I'm going to wait until the 10th one, the 10th row. Here for my new balances, I got $1,113.57. And then I'm just going to write these down just in case you actually want to write these down and keep practicing. Nothing changes. That's why I didn't want to keep going and waste your time. All right, and then the ninth row, we end at $303.19. Okay, that leaves us with the bottom row here. This is your 10th payment, all right? So with your 10th payment, like I said, nothing's changing with our process here. We multiply this now by the previous balance from row 9, and I did not leave myself a lot of room, but we have $6.82 left over for interest. So this is after your 10th payment. You keep whittling down that interest and whittling down your principal. And then for my final row here, we're taking the balance that we found from row 9, subtract that $200 payment, add the $20 charge, and add the interest. Enter all of that into your calculator, and we get $130.01. I don't need to do the second one. Do you know why? Think about what your payments are every month. Your payments are $200 every month. What is the balance at the end here? $130. That means when you make the next month's payment, which would be month 11, it'll be paid off. So when you do these rows, once you get to your balance, your principal being less than this payment, then you know it should be paid off most likely, as long as it's not like, say, 198, and then we've got some interest. But 130, we know we're going to have it paid off. This means it will take 11 months to pay off the credit card. And this ends our section on credit cards, but it also ends our whole chapter on finance. In the next set of videos, we're going to be looking at probability.